just the Spirit Connections logo. But I'm hoping that I see some unicorns or Pegasus, perhaps. So this is our new date and time, or actually I should say place and time. 8 p.m. Spirit Connections is going to be, again, still every Tuesday at 8 p.m. No longer 9. I'm getting older. It's past my bedtime. I need my beauty rest. So I wanted to say thank you for joining us at our new time and new place. So today, in the theme of Halloween, I don't know if you guys saw it on Facebook or not, but I've been a posting machine lately about how I'm trying to get all my paranormal friends in for some in the spirit of Halloween. We're talking about Halloween, we're talking about paranormal, all that good stuff. So I figured, who else should I bring on? Is Matt Moniz. How are you?
All right, Tiff. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be on a show like yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, if you guys do not know who Matt is, he is a plethora of knowledge. Plethora, right?
Either plethora? Way you want to pronounce it.
Okay. Or plethora of knowledge. He is from Spooky Southcoast Radio with Tim Weisberg. Yep. You guys are familiar. Every Saturday night, 10 to midnight. And you're part of Jeff Belanger's Oddball Crew on 30 Odd Minutes, which is airing right now.
Yeah.
But it's parallel kind of competition.
Not really.
No. Well,
how could we compete with you?
But you know, that's a good question, Matt. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you did. There really is no competition.
Well, according to Jeff Belanger, nobody's as beautiful as him, but you come a good second.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Matt, you brought some props, which this is the best thing because we have a studio where I can actually show instead of sitting in my spare room. So, before we get to the props, one of the biggest questions I have, because I know that you are a complete expert in this category, is UFOs.
I know a thing or two about them.
What's going on with UFOs?
What's going on? What isn't going on with them? If you've looked in the news lately, there's been mass sightings around the world. Mm-hmm. But this is actually nothing new. There's been mass sightings that have gone on around the world throughout history. They come in waves, so to speak, but right now we happen to be in a peak type of waves action that's going on currently around the world, but I worked on some pretty famous cases. Abductions are one of my passions that I deal with. Betty Hill was actually a friend of mine, and I did some work on her dress that she was wearing that night. For those that don't really know who Betty Hill was, she was one of the first really documented abductees. Her and her husband, Barney Hill, were coming back from Montreal one night in 1963 up in New Hampshire, and they saw a light. They followed it, and it followed them, and it eventually landed in front of them, and they were taken on board a craft, subjected to a series of experimentations, and then put back in their car, and their memory was erased. After a couple of weeks, they started having terrible dreams, same reoccurring dreams, and they were put under hypnosis, and the whole scenario played out and was recorded, made into a book called The Interrupted Journey, and was later made into a movie by the same name. I actually have with me here pieces of that very dress that Betty was wearing that evening. And there are some pieces that are dark blue, which was the unaffected area of her dress.
I don't know if you guys can see this or not.
What I'll do is I'll put it down here where they can zoom in if they so choose. And some of it has been shaded purple. Notice how it's different than the blue color. Now what had happened was, you know, you got a bluish type, and then you've got another type that is, as they can see, is a bit lighter in color. What had happened was there was some sort of physical effect that happened to the dress. The dress was a 50% poly-cotton blend, as most dresses were made of back in the day, with a semi-vegetable-based dye. Series of testing that I did, as well as other people have done. Phyllis Buttinger, to be precise, being a well-known analytical chemist out in the Midwest. We did a whole bunch of testing and found that part of the dress had been subjected to high concentrations of UV light in very specific wavelengths, as well as certain proteins that had been placed upon the dress that caused it to degrade. I also have soil samples from the famous Bentwaters case. It's a case where a UFO landed outside a military base in England on 3 consecutive nights. And this is the soil from one of the last cases. A friend of mine was a police. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it was a SP, or security patrol for the Air Force, that was there on that night, and that came from the field that the UFO landed in. I did the chemical testing on that, and that wound up being very unique because the soil in the affected area wound up being what's known as hydrophobic. You could take the soil and you try to introduce water to it, and the water would just run off. You wouldn't be able to mix it up to make mud, for all intents and purposes. The soil, even after 10 years, was sterile compared to the surrounding outlying soil. It was chemically changed. As you can see how it's a rust color, as compared to natural soil or loam in a farmer's field would be dark brown. This had turned to red rust. And that's because it actually contains small amounts of FeO, or iron oxide, but not FeO2, which is different, which is regular rust. This is meteoric dust that naturally falls upon the Earth. What happened was all this dust is evenly distributed around the ground as it falls from space. And some sort of heavy-duty electromagnetic force drew all of this meteorite dust in concentrated doses, 10 times the normal found in control samples around it. And it was infused in a form of silicate. The soil had been heated, and this stuff baked into it. It's, yeah, weird stuff.
This is intense, and it's one of those, I've never really, to be honest, I've never really followed UFOs. I've just kind of skimmed the surface of UFO knowledge. And just hearing some of these stories, I mean, what do you think about, there was a movie that came out a few years back. Was it Fourth Encounter? Is that
The Fourth Kind.
Oh, The Fourth Kind, sorry.
Yes.
And did you see it?
Actually, no, I haven't.
Well, me neither, so I guess that's as far as that conversation goes.
But it's about an alien abduction researcher who goes around in Alaska, and it's based on true stories.
Right.
You know, I've been that person, so I don't need to see the movie about it. I've lived it. But you know, that is one of the areas I focus mainly in on, is alien abductees when doing other UFO research. I'm grateful to test physical samples, and yes, as I've shown you, there are physical samples, evidence to be tested. It's not just stories. There are, I mean, it exists. You just got to go out there, look for it, ask for it. It's there to be tested. If you want to sit back and just, you know, ignore it, that's your fault. But if there's evidence there, why not?
Right.
That simple.
It is. So now these cases, actually, you know what, Matt? I think we have a question in the chat room.
Okay.
We do.
Miss Stephanie Burke.
Hi, everyone. We actually have a couple questions already.
Okay.
So do you want to answer both at once, or you want to take one at a time?
Is it a double question, or is it two separate?
We have two separate, but one is double.
Sorry.
First one from Phantom in the chat room. So we're going to say thank you to Phantom for asking the question, being the first one. Has Matt ever seen a UFO for himself?
The answer to that is yes, on a couple of separate occasions. I've seen what would be one of these cigar-shaped, and what other people would term the flying triangle. The flying triangle was one of the first ones I saw right here in Wareham. And it lifted up out of a set of cranberry bogs out back where I lived, and I was on one street, my friends were coming down a cross street. We watched it from two separate angles. It came from behind where the pond was, so over the middle of the neighborhood, right at the intersection where we were all walking to.
Yeah.
turned and just shot up into the air like somebody fired it out of a gun without making a sound. And we all ran to the corner and we're all like, did you see that yet? You know, we were like 12, 13 at the time, but we were like definitely sure it wasn't a helicopter, wasn't an airplane, wasn't anything that we would normally see in the sky.
Already debunking.
Yeah, well,
I
I later
understand.
did go on to become a scientist,
Yeah.
so yeah. But,
I know. Did I mention that? Matt is a scientist. He's a
analytical chemist. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. One of the things that impressed me the most was the way that it just hung there in the air without making a sound. And I remember distinctly looking at the color of the lights and the way that they emitted their brilliance. And what was really strange is with lights that bright, there should have been shadows cast on the ground, but there weren't.
Now, I'm going to ask you, since it was such a mind-blowing experience, do you think that was the experience that actually got you into trying to learn more about UFO research, or?
Well, I had been dealing with other paranormal stuff as a kid in other houses.
Okay.
So this was just another, well, what do you know?
Yeah, something else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, one of the famous stories about my paranormal experiences is I had a Bigfoot encounter while my mother was 9 months pregnant with me. So I was basically 15 to 20 feet from a Bigfoot while in utero. So my life started out like that, you know, from the beginning. So
just so you guys know, that's what these casts are for, which we're going to be talking about in the second portion of the show. But like I said, I'm just really interested in the UFO stuff because I'm not that an avid UFO researcher myself. So I want to hear your take and get your opinions. But I do know that we still have another question in the chat room.
Our next question comes from Cutie. And they want to know, does Matt believe crop circles are real, or does he believe that humans do it?
Good question. 1992, I was in England, and I was brought there to help do some research on crop circles. I did a lot of testing on them, growth testing and testing of physical samples. Yes, there are crop circles that are hoaxes, but not all crop circles are hoaxes. Everybody goes back to the famous incident with the two elderly gentlemen named Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley. While I was there there to witness a hoaxing competition. No, seriously.
I know.
Whereas all of the people that claimed to be the people doing the hoaxing were brought to a very specific field in England. There were like 35 different teams, and they were given their own little section of a field to do a design in. That night, like I said, everybody that's ever claimed to do a hoax was there in front of where we were. All around that entire town were the most crop circles that were ever formed in the largest formations ever. And everybody that ever claimed to do crop circles was right in sight under cameras with everybody else watching. So who did all of the other circles? Well, not only that, and Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley later admitted that the British Department of Defense put them up to claiming to quell public interest, although you won't find that report on television. And that's on record. That is on record.
Between you and Andy Lake, seriously, you guys talk and I'm in awe. Go on, tell me more. Come on.
Well, the reason why they were put up to it is the British government didn't like the idea of their sovereignty, in a sense, being questioned. They wanted, just like any government, they wanted to have the appearance of control. And it's easier to control people by giving them disinformation. You tell them one thing and while something else is actually happening. Actually, the British government warned a bunch of scientists, hold off, don't get involved in any of this right now, because we're about to submarine it. This is on record of them talking to other scientists doing that they were going to do this. And for this specific reason, they didn't want questions asked. Because, well, one of the things I saw that really blew my mind was a field that was on DOD land, Department of Defense land in England, several crop circles on top of a minefield. I want to see somebody do that with board and rope. Really, please, explain to me that one.
Now, since we're all native to Massachusetts, and I know you're also very familiar with the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yep.
Have you noticed any UFO sightings? Or, I mean, I've heard
I get
UFO
reports,
sightings, but...
I get reports out of the Bridgewater Triangle, at least one a week. That's always been a hotspot. And actually, Massachusetts, if you go back to the late 1600s in Governor Winthrop's diaries, there's actually a report of a UFO, the first UFO report in America, on the Mud River in the late 1600s that you can find in, like I said, Governor Winthrop's diaries. So yeah, this area has been well known for UFO.
Along with everything else, I feel like this area is just a...
We got everything here. We do. We really do.
It's like a plethora. That's a vocab word today, plethora. But it is. There's so much history.
Yes, there is. Tons of history.
Yeah. And it's all coming out.
We've got everything. We've got cryptids like Bigfoot. We've had UFO sightings. We've got more ghosts than you can shake a stick at around here in New England. We've got it all. This is also, site of all psychic stuff. You've got the people that were tried as witches in Salem, using that kind of thing. I mean, it all happened right in here first.
Now, again, guys, get your questions into the chat room. Actually, Steph is feverishly writing out a question, but like I was going to say, is get those questions in, because we do have Matt, who is so knowledgeable about this stuff. Just wait till we start talking about Bigfoot and Lizzie Borden and all that good stuff. So definitely, if you have any questions at all. And Matt, will you be at the Spirit Connections event November 5th? I
should be, yes.
All right. I was telling people you were, so I was...
Oh, okay. Well, so I guess I will show up. I don't want to make you a liar.
Or you could be a little celebrity diva and not show up, but...
No. Number one, I don't consider myself a celebrity.
I know. I know.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So anyways, is there a question, Steph?
We actually have 5 questions.
Oh.
Wow.
They're not really on anything that we talked about yet, but the minute you mention Bigfoot and Salem witch trials and everything else, people start asking away, so...
Well, before we get to like the Bigfoot and stuff, why don't we try the witch trials or...
I have a question.
Oh.
What is your take on the Salem witch trials? Actual witches or just something comparable to what we're used to in today's world as far as witches, like Wiccan, pagan?
None of the above.
Okay.
What it actually was a form of land grabs by greedy people. Mm-hmm. Back then, the accusation of being a witch was enough to put your property in the hands of the state or other people, in a means in which that it could be usurped or taken from you. Mm-hmm. Your good Christian name was put in question, and only people of having a good Christian name were able to hold land. So what it was a form of being able to basically seize properties.
Very interesting.
Did you get your answer, Steph?
I did. The reason I asked was because one of my, I think it's my 10th great uncle was accused in the Salem witch trials. But
right.
Given that I have this gift, is that where it came from?
No, what it is that he probably had a very nice piece of land located somewhere that somebody else wanted. So in order to grab it, what they did is accuse you of being a witch or in league, and that puts you in forfeiture of your property and allowed others to buy it for pennies on the dollar. It was based on what, it's not the word speculative, or it's a particular term which they used back then, whereas all you needed was the accusation. You didn't have to provide any proof or anything. Just being accused was enough. Mm-hmm. And then finally they overturned that as being spectral evidence, type of thing.
Good answer. Thanks.
You're welcome.
We actually have 4 Bigfoot questions, so when you're ready for them, let me know.
Okay, give us a couple minutes.
We need to talk about Bigfoot first.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bigfoot.
Okay.
I know. Well, you know what? It's nice to have somebody on the show that actually has like props and stuff like that. I know Steph does her table tipping, but and we would do, like I said, we were doing Spirit Connections out of my spare room. So for the two of us to maneuver this big table, it's a really big table, you know, it would be a little.
Yeah, I do have some castings. I really wouldn't call them props because props are made up.
I'm sorry, I don't mean
That's
props.
all right. You know, as a scientist, I deal with evidence. Okay.
It's all evidence.
Or
I
data.
apologize.
Well, we'll go with the Bigfoot cast that we have here.
First, before you start talking about Bigfoot, I just want, if anybody's just tuning in right now, I have Matt Moniz on. Thank you again for coming on. He is part of the Spooky South Coast radio crew. That's on SpookySouthCoast.com/SpookyTV. Same way you guys got into Watch Spirit Connections today. You guys are on Saturday nights, 10 to midnight. And no more baseball, so you guys are right on time now, right?
Should be.
Yep.
Should be.
And then you can also catch Matt on 30 Odd Minutes.
We're on at the same time.
Because you'll be watching Spirit Connections, but in the archives you could go to 30 Odd Minutes and check Matt out.
Or you could do it the other way, whichever.
Exactly. Or you could come to the Spirit Connections event November 5th in East Bridgewater. But okay, so tell me all about Bigfoot. I love it. Go.
All right. Most of the Bigfoot sightings that we know come from out west in modern culture. But back in the day, the early colonialists were getting the reports from here on the East Coast first. Their reports actually start from this coast and go across. But if you really want to get technical, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, or the Yeti, abominable snowman, whatever these hominids are, exist around the world in various types and forms and locations. The Bigfoot that we have around here in this New England area is actually a little bit smaller than what's found out west, and they tend to be more of a reddish-haired color, whereas in out west they're generally darker and taller. Everybody's remembers the famous Patterson footage, Patterson-Gilman film.
Is that 66?
67.
67.
Actually, right about now in October of 67 is when they got this particular cast.
Oh, this is from?
This is from that actual
I'm not even going to ask to hold it. I will not. I will not ask.
By all means.
People don't even trust me with their babies, never mind a cast of Bigfoot.
Yep.
But this thing's huge.
It's about 17.
Bigger than my
about
face.
17 inches.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Sorry. He took it back quick.
And like I said, Roger Patterson and Gilman were out looking to shoot some actual B-roll stuff about Bigfoot, and they happened to come across the creek and found that infamous thing, crossing across. That's what this cast comes from. This other one actually comes from Onion Mountain, which is roughly about 40 or so miles away from where this foot was cast. And this was cast a little bit later. But what's interesting about this one is, I'll put it over here, if people can see closely, it contains dermal ridges. Now, dermal ridges are like your fingerprints. It's what's found on the bottom parts, the soles of your feet. Right. And this is back in 67. Now, bear in mind that most people didn't even realize that, these things, in terms of dermal ridges, were...
So these, sorry to interrupt, but they're both in 1967, both
Correct.
of these casts. Okay.
And back then, people wouldn't think to put fingerprints in a hoax.
Right.
Most people didn't even know about stuff like that. And yet, these things clearly, if you look for yourself, like the heel marks of the skin, you can see the outlines of the skin in the ridges, just like you have on your own foot.
Yep.
All right. The other thing that helps with verifying that this is a real species is the measurement ratio between the toes and the heel. Okay? And what they've been able to determine is that, yes, this is a real species, even though they haven't really, there's a lot of controversy about it, but from real validated footprints by credible people that took the casts, they're able to determine that, yes, this is could possibly be real because the morphology of the feet or the ratio and relationship of the measurements match known biology, what known biology would do.
Well, even the smaller cast, you can see an arch.
Yes.
Like a human. Or, it looks
not,
like it would be an arch of some. Or,
well, what these things would have is what's known as metatarsal break. Their bones in the middle of their foot hinge in the middle, as opposed where ours don't. It gives what would be a false impression of an arch. Let's put it that way. But they're actually more of a flat-footed type of creature.
Now, before we get to the questions, and I know you still have so much more to tell. I know it's so hard, and I'm like, we have to condense all of this stuff. Like, we still have stuff.
I brought too much stuff for you to play with.
I know, you did. So I'm like, all right, so let's blah, blah, blah. Okay, so my question is, how does one acquire these moldings, these casts of Bigfoot?
Very simply. You can go online and you can actually buy these.
Really?
Yeah.
Like Bigfoot.com? Or?
Well, you might wind up with a monster truck thing at that, but yeah, if you look up
like Grave Digger and stuff.
Yeah, but if you look up Bigfoot casts for sale, you'll find that you can get copies of these. They are for sale, just like the plesiosaur. Okay, plesiosaur is a dinosaur that most people can consider the reason for.
Look at that! Look at how the studio works. I don't know if you guys on Ustream can see the.
It's a little dark,
these guys are doing a great job. Oh, you can't really see it, but it's one of the swimming dinosaurs.
Right. A plesiosaur is what's thought to be the culprit behind the Loch Ness Monster and Champ and stuff like that. Plesiosaurs lived about 65 million years ago. And what most people don't realize is that plesiosaurs were actually a cold water predator. They lived in the Arctic regions, just like our killer whales do. They were not warm water creatures. They were actually warm-blooded. And one of the theories being is they actually could have survived. Not in great numbers necessarily, but that there is a possibility that they could have survived, you know, some vestiges of them. Same thing with certain sauropods, or otherwise known as brontosauruses, which they have been reportedly seeing, like Membe in the Congo.
I'm telling you guys, get those questions in, because I have a ton, and we still have 4 questions on Bigfoot. So, okay, let's go. Sorry, Matt, you can't talk until you answer these questions.
All right.
It's good, though. It's good. Okay, go ahead, Steph.
Before I ask, so we believe that Loch Ness or Champ are real?
I believe that the possibility exists that it could be.
Okay.
I don't have enough evidence to say for certain. I think that there's definitely something there that's happening.
So we should
Am I sure it's a dinosaur? No.
Let's go to Scotland.
I
think we should.
Yep, I think we should. We can stay with my family.
Oh, that's fine.
I have plenty.
Okay.
All right, a lot of Bigfoot.
Go for it.
Does Bigfoot hang out around New England?
Yes. That's where some of the first reports were from New England.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Historically, yes.
Okay. What kind of creature do you believe Bigfoot is?
It is some sort of hominid, meaning some sort of human-like ancestor. We have evidence in the fossil records for what's known as Gigantopithecus, a large 8-foot-tall upright walking ape, the skeletons of which have been found out in China. And we know that this is something that exists in the fossil records. And it lived the same time as man was walking around. So is it a possibility that this creature, you know, migrated across the Bering Straits and, you know, is living in mountain ranges? Now bear in mind, the mountain gorilla was only discovered in the 1930s.
Okay.
Not that long ago. Up till then, it was thought to be, you know, another story. You know, within recent times, they've only found, what, 4 other large ape type of species, subspecies, I should say, of these types of gorillas. So finding another related species that is more intelligent, that knows to hide, as opposed to just, you know, being, you know, indifferent to man, knows enough to hide from man, yeah. Especially
Intelligence.
yeah, it has some form of intelligence enough to know that we're trouble.
Right. So you have 2 different casts over there that seem to be 2 different sizes from what I can see over here. Is
Correct.
that right? So we believe that there are more than one Bigfoot.
Oh, there's several different subspecies of Bigfoot around the world.
Like the Yeti. Yeti is considered.
Yeti or abominable snowman. You have the what's known as skookum, or the skunk ape, which is found down in Florida. You have your typical Sasquatch, which is found in the Northwest and through Canada and stuff like that. There is even reports of the Yowie in Australia. So yeah, these are subspecies of what would be the same hominid.
How tall is Bigfoot estimated to be?
It depends, like I said, it all depends upon the region.
Right.
Yeah, which subspecies you're dealing with. In New England, from anywhere from 5 to 7 feet tall, averaging about the size of a person. Out west, they can get up to 8 to 9 feet tall. Down in the south, they're actually even shorter. They're about 4.5, 5 feet tall. Some reports of them getting over 7 feet. But generally, the East Coast are smaller than the West Coast and Northwest.
Well, you also got to think of culture, environment, you know, like
Right.
if you were talking about humans and you're thinking of like nationality and different different
Right.
parts of the country.
This is another thing that leads
it's the
credence
same
to it
type
being a
of-
real creature, because people up in the mountains, you know, a good example, Norwegians and Germans are usually very tall and very, and the reason being is they have to be larger because of their atmosphere that they're living in. Higher altitudes, meaning you need to be bigger and more robust, whereas in coastlines it's more efficient for you to be smaller in warmer weather areas, because you don't have to, trying to cool off something so big takes a lot of energy to try and cool.
And that's how I think, for you guys watching at home, I think that's a good way to relate to it, to answer that question, because it's true. If you just think of the human race and, you know, like I just said,
Yeah.
It all depends on the environment and
What you have for resources and
Exactly.
what your food sources are and stuff.
survival.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I know. You have to just keep it to like one-word answers, yes or no.
If I can. Okay.
No, you can try. Has Bigfoot ever harmed any humans?
Yes.
Okay. You can elaborate a little on that one.
She said keep it.
I'm curious. So,
Make up my mind. What's
I don't
the-
want to like
Well, you
go
can
get
do,
the
like,
morning paper
yes,
and have Bigfoot on
they
my
have.
lawn. You know, that's a little
I know.
scary.
Actually, one of the first reportings from out west and up north were of Bigfoot's raiding camps and basically stealing people and killing people because they were invading their. There's a famous case where I believe miners and hunters were in a cabin, and the cabin was besieged by these things throwing rocks and stuff all night, mainly because one of the guys shot at one that came out, and they decided that they were going to retaliate. But there have been people reported being kidnapped and taken, in some 1 or 2 cases killed.
Wow.
So
Sorry,
Just go
we
so
have-
then
much
again-
more into this stuff.
I know, and we have
I know.
about 10 more questions. This
Oh
is
my gosh.
the part of the
Is it-
show
is it
where they
all-
all flow in. And
I
It's,
know. I knew. Is it all
awesome,
Bigfoot,
but-
or is it all?
no, it's starting to get into a few more other things.
Okay,
so-
because we still have some Lizzie Borden to talk
I know.
about.
So
and
let's
all
get
that
to
good
these
stuff. Okay,
questions.
sorry, I stopped talking.
Has Matt ever been on any Bigfoot investigations in the Bridgewater Triangle with anyone we might know? Not my question. But there's giggling coming from the camera room.
I was with this one guy. He known as the Phantom PI.
Ah, Phantom.
Oh, Phantom
I know
PI.
Phantom well.
You know him very well.
I do.
Okay. Does that answer that question?
Yes, how was it? Successful, unsuccessful?
We found some good evidence. One of the things that Bigfoot is known for is moving trees around or creating these type of archways, you know, that where they take a tree and bend it around itself, and it uses it as like a boundary marker. This is my territory.
Okay.
Out west, what they do is they take trees that are snapped, spin them upside down so the roots are sticking up in the air, and they jam them into the ground. So you have a tree that's about this big flipped upside down and stuffed into the ground and things like that. But around here, they just bend them around into a loop.
Very interesting. Let me see where I am. Okay, let me stick
I feel
with
like you're
Bigfoot.
writing a book report.
I have so many questions here. Okay.
And I have so many answers.
I know.
Please, everyone at home, forgive me. We can thank Phantom for this question as well. Is Bigfoot Gigantopithecus?
I think I already mentioned that.
Yes, but did I say it right?
Yes, you did,
Oh,
actually.
awesome. Okay. You did, though. I remember you saying the word. But I have to ask because it's a
Not a
question. Is Bigfoot legal to hunt?
Ooh.
Only in some states. There are actually some states that have put it on the books that it is a protected species.
Really?
Correct.
You never know until you ask, right?
No.
Do you believe that Bigfoot species have spirits or souls?
I believe everything living does. Why not?
Right?
I believe. It's the second time I've said that. Just
You would take
I
one home
believe.
and let it be your pet, so.
I would, and cuddle it and snuggle.
You would, even though it's bigger than you.
It could wrap. See, in my mind, I'm thinking of Harry and the Hendersons, and I'm thinking that he's friendly and we
Isn't that the one
groom
that
each
eats
other.
cats?
What?
Does Harry eat cats? Or is that Al? I don't
That's
know.
Elf.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
It's funny
So
that you mentioned about eating cats. They've also been known to kill dogs.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
So
looks
I'm
like.
definitely keeping the dog in when I get the morning paper now, in case there's a Bigfoot on my lawn. Do you think aliens have ancient ties with religion?
In some cases, yes, some religions. Some religions are entirely based on it. Do you want me to go into specifics
go
or
right ahead.
do we have the time?
We do have the time.
Okay, give you a specific one. The Aborigines of Australia. They believe that they are descendants of star beings that came down and landed in what they call Uluru, or the Great Ayers Rock, and that they are descendant of a series of brothers and sisters that came from space. You also have the Dogon, which believe that they are descendant of beings that came down from a particular star system, and they have a very specific design that encompasses the orbit of a particular star around another star that wasn't validated until only recently, but yet they've had this knowledge of this invisible star that goes around this other star for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Matt, are you on tape at all?
No.
No.
Other than the archives of Spooky South
Oh,
Coast.
okay.
What do you mean?
Well, like audio tape, because I feel like you should. That way, people could keep you in their pocket. So, between you and Andy
For a quick
Lake.
fee of $19.99 three times, you can have Matt at home.
Yeah.
What?
Any other questions?
Infomercial. I said it for a quick fee of $19.99.
You can have Matt Moniz at your
I
house.
like the idea
at
though,
Movie Show.
because you have so much knowledge. Everything
I
about
know,
writing
and
a
that's
book.
what I have to say. I agree with you, Steph, and I hate being able to, well, having to say like, all right, let's.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on a book in the future?
I'm in how many books now? Over.
But your own.
Yeah, but your own book. You're in a lot. You're in all these books.
Yeah.
You're in all
I
of
was
our
looking
friends'
at my.
books.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at my bookcase the other day. I was like, I'm in what, 24 ghost books, half a dozen or so UFO books. It's like, I should really write one of my own.
I think it's a great idea.
Moniz, plethora.
The Moniz files.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I like that one. Okay, sorry. Does Matt have any evidence of UFO and Bigfoot connections?
I can tell you several different stories where UFOs and Bigfoots were directly connected, including one with Pennsylvania, West Virginia borderline, 1972, late 60s, early 70s. I'm trying to recall the exact date. But a UFO was seen in the sky. Within an hour or two later, there was a Bigfoot prowling around this guy's property. A guy called I believe it was the Pennsylvania State Police. The police came down and they basically chased this thing, actually a couple of them. And as the police officers were chasing these things turned around, one of the officers fired at him. And any police officer that even pulls his gun is required to file a report, not much less firing. They fired at these beings and actually did nothing to them. And both officers witnessed these things get into a landed craft and take off.
Wow.
And this is on record, state police record. There's another, I'll give you just specifically police reports that deal with these UFOs and Bigfoots. Mm-hmm. Another case up in, I believe, Michigan. I know it happened in the late 60s. Bigfoot was seen at basically a lover's lane, people parking out in a secluded area. And car got stuck, whatever, and the guy encountered a Bigfoot, and then later on the police come and there's the Bigfoot and a UFO, and they took pictures of the scene and everything and stuff like that. Several other encounters similar.
That's very interesting.
And like I said, that's just dealing with police reports. There are plenty of other people that are not police that have had similar type of encounters.
Oh, actually, but I think it gives a lot of credibility to the story when it's a
law especially when they're pulling out the gun and firing. The paperwork that's going to be involved after that is not small.
No, it's not. Has anyone ever estimated how fast a Bigfoot could possibly run?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good question. Whoever asked that, that's a good.
Depends upon the size of the Bigfoot, but yeah, there's, as a matter of fact, the guy that just took the film recently died. There's the Memorial Day footage taken out in Washington, and they've got other professionals that they, Olympic runners that tried to run the same course in the same amount of time and couldn't do it.
Interesting.
I'm talking world-class sprinters.
Right. Did the police have handcuffs big enough for Bigfoot?
You'd have to ask a police officer.
It was asked, so I figured I'd try it. A little off the Bigfoot subject, finally. Would modern-day Reiki be considered as witchcraft was back then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think anything different than doctors.
Anything different than the doctrine, not doctors, doctrine. What was written and accepted for use back then would have been considered heresy. Witchcraft is something different. That heresy is just doing something in the face of man and God. Witchcraft is doing something in the name of the devil, and according to what their theories.
Their thinking, right?
Yeah.
Can I go? Do we have...
You got 15 minutes left.
I know. I'm like, I'm going to talk about something. Okay.
One person did ask about New Bedford Bigfoot. Do we have one? Do we not? But they think they came into the chat room a little late, so...
like I said, the encounter where my mother almost basically ran one over while she was 9 months pregnant with me happened in Fairhaven in 1967.
Wow. It's close to home for
So
me.
now you guys know how old I am.
I feel like it's 1967 is all. It was a big year for Bigfoot.
Not just for Bigfoot, for UFOs.
Everything.
Like these particular pictures of UFOs I got here, taken in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, 1967.
No way.
Yeah. Cigar-shaped type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question, they want to hear more about famous New England UFO cases, so maybe if we have time afterwards.
How about the missing...
Or now.
Oh, we can do it now.
I know Tiff's trying to rush through.
Oh, sorry.
We can do it whenever.
Well, no, because I wanted to bring up something spooktacular.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make sure we had enough time to talk about it.
Go for it.
Well, it's funny that you reached over there. Oh, he's showing. That's a cigar UFO.
Yep.
Lizzie Borden. That's
Lizzie
something
Borden?
I wanted to talk about.
Here's a brick from Lizzie Borden's house. Any questions?
Okay, so
yeah, I got
what was it, August 4th, 1892?
Yes.
Okay. August 4th, 1892, for those of you who are not familiar with the infamous Lizzie Borden trial, well, that wasn't when the trial was, but it was the infamous murder.
Right.
She allegedly killed her father and her stepmother.
She was accused of it, correct.
And that was located in Fall River.
Correct.
Which is now turned into a bed and breakfast. And
Fall River or no, Lizzie Borden's. I'm being a wise guy. Yeah.
So, but Matt and of course Tim Weisberg are kind of head honchos. Oh, you know your stuff is what I'm trying to tell you. When it comes, among obviously many other things, when it comes to Lizzie Borden.
Got my own key.
He does. He does. That's actually one of the first places I met you guys.
Correct.
Was at Lizzie Borden, because I was doing my own investigation with my team. So, for those guys who wanted to know something, supposedly Lizzie Borden is still, well,
people say she is.
People say, I know, and I agree with you, people say, because I personally do not feel that Lizzie Borden is still there.
She hated that place, so why,
Why would she want to stay there?
Right.
Exactly.
Well, the
But-
people say that she's stuck there as her punishment.
Right.
That's her purgatory. That's what her hell is. Now you're stuck in that house. You did this to get out, now you're dead, now you're going to spend the rest of your eternity there because of this. Yeah. A lot of people, will argue it back.
A lot of people do believe that. I don't agree with it, in my opinion.
I haven't seen anything that I could confirm and definitely say, yes, this was Lizzie.
Right.
I can definitely confirm that the place is haunted as hell. The stuff I've seen and gotten in there. When you have stuff being thrown around and your equipment being messed with and you personally being messed with, yeah, there's definitely some issues there.
And that's one of the good things. Well, it's not a good thing when you're getting punched in the face by.
Luckily, that's Weisberg. I'm just there to witness it, which is fine by me.
But that's one of the good things for all you guys that are interested in trying to find something spooky to do around this time of year, is you have the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast right down the street in Fall River, and Luann is still running it, right?
Leanne,
I'm sorry. Leanne is still running it.
Yep.
But there's a little gift shop in the back, and I remember before I actually got there, I thought it was going to be a lot bigger than it actually was, and it's just a 3-story house.
Correct. It was actually built as a two-story tenement that the father converted into a single-family home. Here's a little bit of interesting information. You may know this, but the rest of your folks don't. Everybody just assumes it's Andrew and Abby were the only people that died in that house. Wrong. 20 years prior, on the same property, Andrew Borden's aunt, who lived next door before this house was actually even built, she drowned 3 out of her 4 kids and then slit her own throat. She drowned her kids on the well on the property, and the house is built on top of the well. And so you have 3 deaths and a suicide on the property.
So there's 4 right there.
There's right there, another 2. Supposedly, although this can't be confirmed, somebody was shot in the basement for owing money, because after Lizzie's family sold it in the 20s, it was bought by people of nefarious nature, if you know what I'm talking about, and they used to run numbers out of it. And back then, if you didn't pay your bill, they sopranoed you.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. But that can't be confirmed because, that's only rumor and legend. Then it was a boarding house for a number of years, and people that were renting the rooms were old winos and this and that, and a few people died of, drinking and whatever they succumbed to. And then finally it was bought by the McGinns, who had it for a number of years, had a printing business, and Mrs. McGinn actually died in the dining room. So we have like 7 or so known deaths in the house.
Exactly.
Not just the 2 that everybody's familiar for making.
And
the
it's
place famous.
amazing because they have the guest book, and I was browsing through the guest book, and people come from all over the world just to come to this location in Fall River. So I mean, if you guys are definitely looking for something to do, or if you like to travel, infamous bed and breakfast.
Notorious.
Notorious bed and breakfast that could be haunted. I definitely recommend.
It is haunted. Not could be. Is.
Yeah. Ask Matt. He goes there all the time. It's his home away from home, pretty much.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, if you have your own key, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. But in my opinion, the whole Lizzie Borden case is just. I learned so much. Growing up, I just thought, oh, she killed her dad and her stepmom, and that's all I thought at the time.
And for those of you that don't know, she was acquitted, found not guilty.
Right. right? And that was all when she was 32,
Correct.
right? Right around my age. But anyway, I'm 33. It doesn't count. But anyways, so I wanted to talk about that because I have a fond, you know, again, going along with the whole haunted type stuff. But Steph, do we have any more questions? I see your flashlight going off.
I know, it's the only
And
way
we
to get
do
me.
have, just so you guys know, we only have about 10 more minutes. So if you have any questions, definitely get them into the chat room, please. And also let us know what you think about the new setup and the new time. Give us your opinion. We want to make you guys happy. Who cares about us? We want to make you happy. So definitely let us know. Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry,
thanks. The infamous question that everybody wants to know, did Lizzie do it?
Did Lizzie do it? Are they asking for my opinion or what the historical record is?
Opinion.
Okay.
And if you do believe so.
You want my quick little theory?
Sure.
All right. I believe that she killed her stepmother. You know, I gotta do this because most people don't know the real story behind it. Abby Borden was Lizzie's stepmother, wasn't her real mother. Her biological mother died. I believe that she killed her stepmother because she hated her with a passion. Because basically this woman stepped into her family and her family's life, and her father was now doting on this new woman and basically turned her back on her mother's family. As a matter of fact, John Morse, who is Lizzie's biological uncle, was there the night before to be told by Andrew Borden, and this is a matter of record, that I'm evicting you from your family's farm and selling it. And oh, by the way, I'm going to give the money that I'm getting from the sale of your family's farm to my new wife's family. So I have a feeling that Lizzie was really upset about this situation, got into the argument with her mother, whacked her mother. The uncle came back to pick up his clothes and whatever, to go back and whatever, found out what Lizzie had done and waylaid the old man when he came in, figuring that if this goes beyond it, they're not going to believe that a woman was able to do this to a man.
There's so many backstories that I feel like the majority of us just don't know.
Well, the facts bear it out, at least in my opinion, that this is what happened, because as soon as Lizzie was acquitted, the very first thing she did was hand her uncle the deed to the family farm.
So if we believe Lizzie did it, or did part of it,
Yeah.
do you believe it was the only time that she murdered in her lifetime, before or after that?
You're talking people? She definitely murdered her stepmother's cat the week before.
Oh,
She
okay.
chopped the cat's head off with a hatchet.
That's pretty
That's
gruesome.
no, that's,
You don't do that to cats.
yeah.
People? Do we believe she might
Do you
have?
do it to people? Well, that's...
Well, did she do it to humans after the cat and her stepmother, do you think?
Like I said, I think she definitely killed her stepmother because the autopsy verified that she was hit repeatedly with shallow blows, indicating a person with weak upper body strength, meaning a woman.
Right.
Kind way of saying a woman. Whereas in Mr. Borden was deep, severe, heavy, hard blows, indicating somebody with massive upper body strength, basically a big old farmhand.
Right, and this is really interesting because these are some of the facts that aren't out there, or people don't commonly get to
Well, like I said,
learn about.
yeah.
So
I have
thank you, Matt
access
Moniz.
to all of the,
Right.
the historical records there. So,
Right.
you know, I have access to the autopsy reports and even casts of the skulls.
Maybe we could
That's
have a Spirit Connections at Lizzie Borden's.
That would be awesome because
I think that'd be great.
this is a lot of information for only 5 minutes left.
I know. But
Quickly.
that's what happens when we bring Matt on.
I know,
Okay,
I know.
okay.
Or anybody, because we get so many questions.
I know. All right.
Sorry.
Is there actual proof that she killed them? And what do you think the reason is? But we already
Is there
answered the
actual proof? I just
Yeah.
went through that. Okay.
reason. What is your take on Lizzie's half-brother having to do with the murders?
I think he may have been a witness to it. I don't think he was, he may have been a compliciter, but I don't think he was the one that actually took care of Andrew. Now, he's an illegitimate half-brother.
Right.
Okay.
So people were wondering, since, you know, the whole Are you definitely part of the family, or are you not? Are you entitled to some kind of money and not getting any? Would that be
I think
motive?
he may have gotten, he did actually, I think, get something at the end after Lizzie was done. So he may have played a part in it, or it may have just been hush money, shut up, go away.
Interesting.
How many more questions do we have?
One more for Lizzie. Any EVPs?
This is good.
Are there any EVPs stating any unknown facts about Lizzie or the murders?
We have several very good EVPs that are out of this place. If people want, they can go to Whaling City Ghosts and you know, Luann Jolly. Look up her work there. That's phenomenal. That's all I get. In order to save time, just Whaling City Ghosts.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a Jack the Ripper question.
Okay.
Do we believe he was from the USA?
It's been postulated in that after he was done in London, he came over to New York and continued on there. There are several books about that.
Okay. And do we believe that Lizzie Borden was possessed?
I don't see any real evidence for it, personally.
Okay. And that is all for now.
All right. That's great. I do want to wrap it up. Well, I don't want to wrap it up yet because we still have some time. But, Steph, you had mentioned a question about the UFOs, getting back to what we were originally talking about.
Come full circle.
What was the question as far as...
People wanted to know about any other famous New England UFO cases.
Okay, one famous New England UFO case actually happening right around the corner. In the mid-50s, a UFO was seen over Buzzards Bay. Otis Air Force Base launched a fighter jet. I believe it was an F-86, if I'm not mistaken, or may have been an F-84. Yeah, I think. But regardless, it was a jet scrambled after it, containing a pilot and a RIO, a radar intercept officer. The plane, as soon as it left the runway, went wheels up. It tucked its gear up into the wheel wells and started to vector towards the unknown object being directed by the tower. As soon as the radar intercept officer was able to acquire the object on his targeting radar, the jet completely ceased all electrical and mechanical activity. In a sense, it flamed out the engine, all the electronics went null, turned off, and they were only 700 feet above the ground, over land, still heading out to sea to go intercept this craft. The pilot ejected and he heard the radar intercept officer eject first, because that's procedure. Because if the guy out front ejects before the guy out back, the guy out back is going to get burnt up with the ejector motor rockets. So the radar interceptor officer had to eject first, and then the pilot did. The pilot landed in a guy's backyard. They never found the plane or the radar intercept officer. The plane was only 700 feet off the ground when it disappeared. So
very interesting.
There was an ensuing search for both the pilot and the radar intercept officer that turned up nothing.
Now, oh.
1 minute.
Oh, okay. We have a couple things really quick in 1 minute. So, first of all, Matt, how can people get in touch with you if they have any questions, or should they just catch you on Spooky South Coast on
go to
Saturday
Spooky
night?
site, spookysouthcoast.com or 30oddminutes.com. Those are the easiest ways to reach me.
Excellent. And also, I wanted to let you guys know, thank you for being on my show. And I want to say thank you for being on my show. We still have so much to go over, and I'm sure Steph has a ton of questions.
Just one mention. Did we have the chat room question answer from last week?
Oh, sorry. Thank you for reminding me. I know who you are, and, you know, I was a mess when I talked to you today. But, yes, the answer for last week was basically everything below the equator. It celebrates Halloween the exact opposite way as we do above the equator. And also, can I keep, okay. Just really quick, sorry. Haunted History Night this Saturday at the Thank you, at the Fearing Tavern. We're going to have Tim Weisberg, myself, Andy Lake. Matt, are you going to be joining us?
Obviously.
Obviously, great. So we're going to be there. You need to get your tickets. You need to go to SpookySouthCoast.com and go purchase your tickets. It's going to be a night to remember. We're going to be actually serving you on a, not serving you on a platter, serving good food.
How to serve man.
On a platter. But also, if you guys have any other questions, go to Spirit Medium Tiffany on Facebook. And I feel like I'm like, blowout, blowout, blowout.
Is it Brazilian?
It's a Brazilian blowout. All right, guys. Well, I want you guys to have a good night. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know what you think about the new setup, and thank you very much. Have a good night. We'll see you next week.
Yay!